Hello and welcome to Soul Healer Podcast. I'm your host, Ishita Pama. I'm a psychic, I'm a medium, and I'm an energy healer, and I'm here to help you find your answers, deep healing, and clarity and ease in your life. So if you're ready, let's go. Hello and welcome to Soul Healer Podcast. I am so excited today because I have Sookz here with me. This is going to be a really special interview. He has a really special story. And before I talk all about the story, Sookz, thank you for being here. And can you share a little bit about how you got on this path?
Yeah, absolutely. So it was a journey. I started off as a music producer, photographer, and was really deep into the cinematic and film world. And from that space, those creative arts were really an outlet for my emotions. They were really an outlet for some of the more challenges I was dealing with on a subconscious level. For example, I would experience bouts with anxiety, feeling depressed, feeling isolated, heavier emotions that sort of trapped me in this bind. But music, in a way, was a spiritual journey for me. That's when it really first started. And from that place, I just started to step into this mentorship role. I started to meet individuals. I started to work with artists who wanted to put themselves out there. So being a producer, you really kind of end up being that space holder for artists to express themselves, to find their voice, to really find the courage to put themselves out there and share their unique energy. So the mentorship space was already deeply embedded when I started in production. And one day I was driving and I had a situation where I couldn't breathe anymore. I had a peanut allergy, and I basically had three choices. One was either I call the ambulance and I wait for them to come get me. Two, I drive back to my home, find the medication I need to revive myself. Or three, just drive myself to the hospital and see what happens. So I had to, in the moment, I didn't know how long it would take for the ambulance to get there and getting back home and finding the meds, but that could take who knows how long. So the only certainty I had was to drive myself to the hospital. And by driving myself, so I was going on the highway, couldn't breathe, my lungs were collapsing, and everything just went into slow motion. So it was like I was driving, everything just went into this deep slow motion. And it honestly felt like I was going into this meditative state. I couldn't breathe and there was panic and there was a lot of fear, but I was really calm and centered within. And then suddenly everything went into slow motion and I just felt this energy of death that just came and sat down next to me. And it said to me, you have two choices. Either you can pull over and don't worry about it, or you keep going and don't worry about it. And it was in that moment that I realized all the fears I had, all the anxiety, all the depression, all the narratives, all the victim stories I had about myself, none of it even mattered because in this moment I could be gone. And here I was thinking about how much time I have spent in my life caught in these limiting beliefs, caught in this trauma that I had no idea I even had. And so I decided to keep on driving. And I got there just in time. When I got there, I was revived and I felt this new sense of aliveness. It was almost like a second chance. It was giving me a new perspective about how I was using my 24 hours in my day. We all have 24 hours every day, right? But how we use that energy, how we use our aliveness is what will determine what we do while we're here, right? So it served as a really ground foundation for me between, it's really just a choice. In every moment, we have a choice. And in that moment, it was very clear you have a choice. You can pull over and give up and don't worry, and you'll come back and you'll do another thing. Or you keep going and you keep enjoying your life and see what happens, and become a creator of your life, become a creator of what you want to bring out there and put out there so that way you can receive the same thing. And so that was the process. And then from there, I really decided to devote my time and energy into mindfulness practices, into becoming aware of the complex PTSD I had in my own body, and create enough separation from all of those fragmentations that were built up from just upbringing, cultural upbringing. Fragmentation is a big part of society right now. And I think doing the healing work, sometimes we have to have something that jars us loose from all of the programming. And for me, that moment was an awakening. And I've had a few of them, just sitting in stillness, being able to separate from who I think I need to be versus who I am. And doing that work has really solidified a lot of new beliefs, new ways of being, and helped me to shape the offerings that I now help others go through. And yeah, so that's the core of the story here. It comes down to choice. The choices we make in every moment will create the next moment.
That's amazing. Thank you so much. I want to just highlight that near death experience that you had and the feeling that you had, because it sounded like there was peace there, even though it was potentially a transition for your body. And what it sounds like you're doing for people is also providing a sense of peace and alignment. Not just
Yeah,
now that you just had the choice to find peace in a number of different ways, and it sounds like you're also giving people the power to choose peace.
absolutely. Because those choices happen on an internal basis. And I think when we get stuck in certain patterns or certain belief systems, we no longer think that we even have that choice. For example, someone who thinks they are not worthy of really tremendous opportunities, they're never going to go walk and knock on certain doors that might open for them and give them the opportunity they need. Instead, they'll probably stay in the same comfort zone, right? But that's the thing, is that sometimes when we don't take those actions and we stay too much in the comfort zone, what happens is the energy starts to stagnate. And then within that stagnation, then we start to get issues in our life, like relationship issues or career issues or financial issues or emotional issues. Things start to not work, and it jars us loose from our comfort zone so we can start to embrace the moment, the fullness of the moment once again, and start to really become creators of our life. So for me, it is that it's about helping people choose peace within themselves. It's not about me telling anyone what to do, how to be, or what to be. It's really simply, can you be still enough within your body? Can you be calm and relaxed enough within your body so that you can let every ounce or every piece of emotion that wants to move through you move? And then, if just by giving it your pure presence, then it shakes the energy up, and then we're no longer in stagnation, we're no longer in resistance. Flow starts to happen.
So I guess, how do you know that you are in a pattern or you're stuck or there's signs that you're not in alignment?
It's a great question. So signs that you're not in alignment, I think number one is probably a lot of suffering.
Mm.
Suffering, spirit in its essence is playful. Spirit in its essence is loving. It wants you to really be in touch with your authentic energy. We're the same children we were when we were born, and our perception has shifted and changed. But that identity, that relationship with ourselves, is where we'll find the true alignment. So I find that typically when we're not aligned, it's because we're operating from fears or from these fragmented parts of ourselves. And they won't work. It just doesn't work. It's like you hit a block over and over and over again. I find that's how you can tell if you're in alignment or not. It's really like, and it's such a body thing, it's such a nervous system thing. When we're in fight or flight, we're very rigid, and nothing is really happening. And that doesn't mean that your dreams can't manifest even when you're in that state.
Mm.
But when you're really in touch with your own core well-being, your own self-love, your own self-care, and you're really choosing what is highest for your own well-being, then I think alignment starts to happen a little bit better, because we're choosing peace from within, we're choosing healthy habits, and that ripples outwards.
I love that. Always coming back to the power of choice. We always get to choose what we want.
Absolutely. And you can be as bold as you want, or you can be as chill as you want. There's no right or wrong. It's just your authentic energy and what you aspire to, or the visions we have for ourselves, all attribute to that, right? So I think we could break it down like this. Let's say somebody has an end goal or a result that they're looking for, and they're looking for the most aligned path, let's say, right? So the first step, and I learned this from one of my own personal mentors, where he said, well, it's cool, you got great dreams, you know where you want to go, but if you don't know where you are, you can't get there. So you can call an Uber, right? You can tell them you want to go to this destination, but if they don't know where to pick you up, you're not getting there. So you always got to know where you are. So that's the number one thing, is know thyself, know where you are in this moment, know where you are in relation to that desired outcome or that desired way of living that you wish to be living in. And then from there, we start to choose that and make plans that help us get to that destination.
What do you say to people who are saying, well, I don't even know where to get started because I don't even know where I'm at right now? What do you do then?
Yeah, that's perfect. So typically when people start asking themselves, I know this from my own experience, like I would start asking myself, I don't even know what I want anymore. This isn't interesting me. This is kind of too challenging. Kind of tired of this person, So there's all these different things start coming up, and then we start doing the self-reflection. So only when we've suffered enough do we start doing self-reflection, right? So that's the number one thing. So when we're starting to look at ourselves and we're looking at our own suffering, I think it's important to look at the story. That's the number one thing. Look at what you've done in the past. If you don't know what to do in the future, really understand where you are now. What are some of the patterns that are repeating themselves constantly? What are some of the behaviors that are showing up? Because the only difference between where we are right now and where we want to go is really the behavior and attitudes and how we perceive life and how we respond to what life is showing us. So, for example, and that's why I was saying in the beginning, we all have the same 24 hours in the day, but each of us responds differently. And there's no right or wrong, but it's really just how authentic are you with your own self? What is your relationship with your own self? And then what is that relationship like with your own life? And then from there, I think you can start to generate some excitement and some aspiration about what you want to create for yourself, what you want to experience for yourself. So it's really a period of transition when someone says, I'm going to look at myself, I want to change some things. Well, it's important now to recognize what you're comfortable with and start to expand. It doesn't have to be a huge, crazy shift, but it can be a subtle, gradual shift. And those changes will start to ripple out.
Oh, I love that. Yeah, we're not in a rush. We have the time. We can sit with ourselves, and however long it's going to take, it's going to take. I love that. I love that you mentioned that, because I feel like all of us feel like we're on this timeline and we're stuck in this view of what we have to be and who we should be and when that should be happening on a certain journey in our lives. Do you feel like, well, I guess this is a vulnerable question, but what's one pattern that you feel like you're really proud of that you worked through?
One pattern that I worked through. I mean, I think for me, in my earlier days, I think it was really just being a victim, like being a victim to my circumstances. To give you an example, I worked 9 to 5 jobs. I hated the jobs. So I'd get up, I hate going to work. I don't want to go to work. I do the work, I leave, not happy, put on the TV. And I'm just like that, that matrix loop.
Yes.
And for me, I couldn't do it. I did not like doing that. Right. And it won because I was not being authentic, that I didn't like it. The employer would suffer, I would suffer, and everyone was suffering in it. So if it's not an alignment for me, it's not alignment for them. And so then that attitude change really, really shifted a lot of things. And it was just not one simple thing, it was just truth. How truthful am I about what I'm doing right now? Do I actually enjoy doing this? If it's a no, don't do it. Because then not only am I wasting my time, I'm wasting everyone else's time that's involved. So instead, I was like, let me do things that feel authentically real to me. And this was a big shift. It's not how consistently you do the thing, it's how consistently you show up to do the thing. It's how you do the thing, not how often you do the thing. All right. And that is key, is that if you show up to the thing and you do your best and you're authentic with your energy and you're giving your full presence to it, and it's not just coming from some fragmented obligation, it's coming from your whole core being, then that's where we're starting to move forward. That's one pattern that I'm really proud of that I have shifted, is I've always just leaned into that authentic energy, especially for the last 3 4 years. And it's brought me all kinds of gifts, even further than I could have ever imagined.
That sounds like intention, like the energy of
Mm,
intention to me when you
absolutely.
say that. Like, what
Mhm.
intention are we doing this ritual with? What intention am I driving this car with? How am I being and existing in this world? And I feel like that's what you mean when you say authenticity, showing up with the intention of where you want to be or how you want to go in life.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And intention comes with acceptance too, right?
Mm,
Because that's what I'm saying, is that, like, if you don't know where you are, you can't get to where you want to go. And so first we have to accept. And sometimes we're angry, sometimes we're sad, sometimes we feel shame, sometimes we feel guilt. Other times we feel the higher vibes, love, flow, all of those. And all of them are fine, and you don't have to try to change any of them. But with acceptance, and if you can accept who you are, then that intention has way more power, because it's coming from a rooted, authentic energy, and not something that's just like, okay, I got to shift myself to be in alignment to the thing. That's just overexertion of energy. And it ends up sapping a lot of mental energy, a lot of physical energy, and a lot of emotional energy to constantly try to shift and change our emotions.
right.
So I think it's about letting it be, accepting it, giving space, giving holistic space to everything that's present within you, and always recognizing that who we are is right here, right now. And there is no, people think when they feel sad or depressed that they are sad and depressed, but no, like we are not the emotion. The emotion is passing.
Wow. Okay. So if someone was saying, yeah, well, that's all easy to do or to say, but how do I actually do that? Like, how would somebody go about and be comfortable with letting go and just being present? Because I know some people really struggle with that. So what would you say to those types of people?
I'd say, I'm sorry you're really struggling with letting go. I know it's frustrating, right? And it's okay to feel frustrated. And then from there, what are we frustrated about? What's going on in the life that feels frustrating? And just holding space for that frustration, holding space for that anger, holding space for the exhaustion of trying to let go, because it's exhausting to try to always let go. So instead of trying to let go, why don't we just sit with what's present? Why are we getting away from it? Why are we running away from that frustration? What is that emotion, that discomfort trying to show us in this moment?
Really
I think
uncovering what's underneath it.
that's right. Because there is only now, right? So every other element that is in between that is a passing emotion, a passing energy. And I think when we stop rationalizing about them or trying to shift anything, and instead we come back to the body, I would ask the individual to just come back to the body, be with their own heart, be with their breath, feel their feet on the floor. We're alive right now. If you got health, amazing. If you got food, okay, let's start with the basics, right? Some people don't even have that. So let's just start with the basics. Did you clean your room today? Did you wash your dishes? Did you handle this, just the little life things? Because the way we do one thing is the way we do everything. And it all seeps out into every other element. So instead of fixating so much on how to be or what to do, I'm just like, let's just look at your life as it is right now, and the simplicity of it, without any of the overcomplications. And that tends to bring a lot more peace, rather than trying to make someone change or shift what they're feeling or what's going on.
I love that. That kind of reminds me of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Like, let's just bring it down to the basics before we can get to the love and the self actualization part. So I love that.
Absolutely. Yeah. because then we're always choosing. And in fact, you're starting from self-actualization then, because you're starting from that self-awareness, from what's actually present within the body. And then when we start from there, we can authentically become creators of our reality rather than consumers. And it's both. We're always going to consume and we're always going to create. But if you're aware of which one you're using, then you have a lot more power in your ability to be intentional with it. So if you're like, hey, well, right now I'm going to be creative, I'm going to go create. Oh, I don't know how to do this thing. I'm going to watch this video how to do it. I just want to be entertained, put on some Netflix on, you know, like whatever you need to do. But without that self-actualization, being aware of who you really are, right? Which is that awareness that's always observing. And then we have a little detachment from the emotional states that are passing. And that's what gives freedom to choose in a way, you know.
You talked a little bit about music. I'm wondering if that's still a healing practice for you now that you use.
Absolutely. Now it's more a channeling thing for me. It used to be an emotional outlet. It still is. But what happens for me now is when I use music, I'll feel the raw emotion, and then it almost I guess transmutes it. It alchemizes it into something else. So sometimes, you know, if I'm going through a situation where I'm a little, you know, my heart's not feeling centered and I have emotions all over the place, I'll go into the music. It's wonderful because I can let myself go there. You know, I can be sad, I can be pumped, I can be whatever it is. And the music takes over and it shapes itself and it crafts an energy behind it that now when people listen to it will invoke a certain energy too. So it helps people process and then release, right? And if you think about any music, right, people going through heartbreak, there's some good sad songs, have a few good cries, and you're good. Well, it's not that easy, but you know what I mean.
No, I love that because it reminds us that we have spaces or tools rather to be able to let ourselves release emotions that maybe have been suppressed for a long time that we just don't have time to suppress in our day to day. So when you just turn on some music or you go into the art of the music and give yourself 20, 15 minutes to just delve deeper into that, there's really big healing that you can access.
Absolutely. Tools are so important, right? Like meditation tools, yoga tools, music tools, whatever they are, I think they're so important. And, but this is interesting too, because what I find happens to some people is they over identify with the practices. So if they are really good at meditating, and you know, then they'll feel like they're an excellent meditator or an excellent yogi, and they identify with the practice then. But the practice is really sort of just a bridge that opens a path or opens a gateway for you to reside within that authentic energy that lives within you. It just helps you come back to center. But when if it's too much about the practice, then it's no longer the essence of it gets lost, you know.
Mm. How do you know? Like, what is that balance? Like when you're over identifying?
Well, it's like that spiritual ego, right? That comes in. That's what they call it.
I love that you brought
So
this up.
yeah, it's a real thing. So we, you know, and I've experienced this myself, like going from that identity of being a music producer, and you know, that whole thing has a whole spectrum of possibilities within it. And then you get out of that and you go into being a coach or mentor, or and you're in the spiritual space and you're holding space for people to go through transformations. Then definitely you're going to start identifying with that, I guess, personality type. And then the
Mm.
language changes and then everything shifts and transforms with it. And I think it's good because for me personally, like the ego is like an art piece for me. It's like it's something that I'm creating constantly. It's the personality and the energy that I choose to reside within plays in the life that I'm in. And for me, it's a conscious activity to create, and that's why I often associate myself into my brands, or like you're putting out an energy out there that's there to serve, and so that construct in a way serves a purpose. rather than it being something that keeps you disconnected from your own truth. Right. So instead of trying to cut it out completely and then just really try to do all these practices to be here now and to really be quote unquote spiritual, I think really being in touch with that spiritual energy is about being in your authentic energy.
Yes.
And then you're good. And it doesn't matter because, you know, eating a salad at a restaurant could be just as spiritual for someone, you know, as somebody who's sitting in nature, deep in meditation, or some conversations with individuals at an event that it has nothing to do with spirituality can also have a profound spiritual experience, right?
Yes. Thank you.
So, yeah, absolutely. So it's like how we define spiritual, how we define what that even means, and that is where some people get lost, some people find peace in that, and yeah, how we define it is important.
I love that. And, you know, from being a psychic, being a clairvoyant, seeing energy, being a medium, it's really interesting to see how we're all this spirit, we're this collective consciousness, we're source. And so we're always experiencing being spirit. And we're always spiritual because we are spirit. And I love that you mentioned that an experience at a party or sitting down with a friend or being anywhere can literally bring about that spiritual experience because it reminds us who we are, reminds us how we're connected, not just in a relationship, but connected to more than just us.
Yeah.
I love that you brought that up, and I'm also wondering, what is your healing practice right now? Like if you went day to day, or just you know, your everyday sort of practice in terms of how to work with staying present, letting go, and healing. Like, what do you do as a coach, as a mentor? How do you hold space for yourself?
Yeah, I got it. Well, for me, it started, this is what I did in the beginning. And I can tell you what I do now because it's a little bit different. But first thing for me is I like to identify what season I'm in. If I'm in a season of exploration, ideation, then I'm going to wander, I'm going to go out, I'm going to do things I've never done before. If I'm in a season of I need to build, I need to focus, I want to launch, I want to create, then I'm a lot more structured in my days. So the first step is just figure out what season are you even in. So for me right now, I am in a season of there's rebranding happening. There's other projects that are happening outside of what I've done in the past. And it's different. It's a different responsibility for me. It's a whole new kind of life starting for me. So my practices will be different. But so the first thing is that what season are you in? So what I do typically, just to make sure that I'm really in touch with where I'm at, is I just sit. I don't do anything. I just sit. Sometimes I can sit 30, 40 minutes. I just listen to the space and I just sit my butt down and I don't do anything. And I just listen and I just be. And for me, for some people, it drives them nuts. For me, it does wonders because I'll have so many things just come up just by me being present, just by me allowing the energy that's there inside of me to move and to really reconnect with the observer that's there, and to decide what meanings am I giving to my life? What meanings am I giving to the situations I'm in? And I write a journal. So I do one entry. This is what's going on in my world. This is what I'm grateful about. And this is what I'd like to create. And so it's just those two simple practices that I'm doing right now. And the rest just falls into place. I just listen and I move. I follow my intuition. I listen and I move. I respond and I create and try to make it happen as much as I can.
That's really great. And it sounds like there's a real permission to allow yourself to, well, trust yourself, to have faith that you can be in a balance. I think balance is such a hard thing for so many people. So I love that you found a way to do that.
Yeah, and in the most simplest, boring way. You just sit down. It's nothing special. But and then other times it's running, other times it's training, other times it is yoga, other times it is like going to get a massage or seeing a psychic, for example, or sometimes it is these different things that I want to mix into it. But that's why I think creating a customized practice formula for yourself is really important, because there's so much information, there's so much insta therapy, and like we don't really know what's going on. People don't really know what's going on with themselves. And then when you have all this info coming at you, it never gets integrated, right? And so taking the time and space away from all the platforms and just reconnecting with your own inner healer, like your own authentic healer, your own authentic energy can show so much, right? And that is the most empowering thing then too, because you develop a relationship with the deepest part of yourself who has always been there for you, no matter what you did, no matter where you went, no matter what happened. That deepest part has always been present, observing, loving you unconditionally. And so reconnecting with that, I think, is the most important step.
I love that. So you work with people one-on-one to customize a practice for them?
Absolutely, absolutely. So I work with people one-to-one like that. And what we do is we identify what season they're in, we identify the narratives, we identify the energy that's present, and we also identify what are the inspirations and passions that are wanting to be expressed or that are wanting to be embodied. And that's a little bit of a leap of faith. We have to start stepping into courage and going into the things that are limiting us and growing from that place. And we use flow states to get there. So that way, flow states is, for me, the why behind that is that whenever I would make a piece of music or I would go shoot photos, it was always the process that was the most enjoyable. It was never the end. It was the process of being in it and creating it and doing it. And that's what I want to bring to the table when I'm working with people. It's like, really love what you're doing, enjoy what you're doing, and then the results will speak for themselves, right? And that way you'll get to where you want to get to, and at the end of it, you'll feel grateful about your journey because you chose what was most authentic and you chose to do the things that were being called from you, getting those downloads and you're taking action on them. It's fulfilling then, right?
I love that, because it does give us a reminder that we can slow down and stop and smell the roses and enjoy what's present in front of us. And it's really about the journey and not the destination. Because truly, whatever we want to create or have in our lives is just going to continue to be, we're just going to have another thing to want or create. And so when we allow ourselves to enjoy the process of what we're in right now, we can have that for ourselves to the fullest, and then go on the next journey of that, and then go on the next journey of the next thing, and then go on the next journey of the next thing, because we just get to keep up leveling. But there's an appreciation, there's a gratitude that happens when we're enjoying it. I love that.
Absolutely. And it's not always going to be enjoyable, right? Like certain situations will arise that reflect certain patterns that we have not seen yet. And then, it hurts or it's very painful, or those are present too. But how we respond to those situations ultimately defines us, right? It defines our character. And it's not that easy. It's not always that simple. I think there's a lot of complications. Just look at what's going on in the world, the conflicts that are happening right now.
Yeah.
Those are all stemming from deeper survival fears. And, so it's just a lot. There's a lot there.
Well, if people want to work with you, how can they reach out? What can they do?
Yeah, they can just shoot me a DM directly. They can go to my website. They can apply online. My DMs are always open, so you can always just shoot me a message and I'll respond personally. And yeah, really simple.
And right now, what are you offering so the listeners know?
Yeah, absolutely. So right now I have a 90-day process that's open where we do exactly that. We find what season we're in. We find what are the core strengths and inspirations that are present, and then we work towards building it and launching it. So that's number one. And then the other one is really about cultivating and creating a unique meditation flow state practice that helps individuals to tap into their own unique healer, their own unique inner guidance system, and really cultivate that relationship with themselves. And that one goes between 3 months to 12 months. And there's a lot of magic that comes out of that, from creation of visions to releasing old wounds. And there's enough time and space to really do the full integration. That's one of the key value points of it.
I love that so much. Thank you so much for your beautiful energy, your insights today, Sookz. I know that
Thank you.
there was so much there that we got to really have a good reminder for ourselves. So I appreciate you. Thank you. And I know that there will be several people who will be benefiting from your work. So thank you.
Thank you. That was great. Thanks so much.
Thanks so much for listening to this episode of Soul Healer Podcast. If you resonated with this episode, then I encourage you to click on the links in the description so you can step into deep healing and transformation. Until then, I'll see you in the next episode of Soul Healer.